For us, LA was pretty cool. Gangs wasn't as popular as it was in the late 80s and early 90s. And I believe that in the 90s, with Hollywood coming out with different kinds of movies that portray the gang life, a lot of the young kids took a liking to it, and they try to imitate it.
So they romanticized the gangs.
Oh, yeah. They romanticized the gangs, and to be honest with you, I remember watching American Me, watching movies like Boys in the Hood, and you see, that lifestyle is appealing. You want the acknowledgement, the respect. You want the money. You want the drugs. So there was this. It was candy to the flesh, if you know what I mean. And
why do you think those movies were made?
Where they were made?
Why?
I think for entertainment purposes, and I think that because the gang life in those early days, there was gangs, but it wasn't as bad, as they became, through the years. But I just think that the movies kind of. It was like it was an injection of steroids, into that lifestyle, and people now wanted just to be a part of that.
So the gangs weren't that big, or they weren't that violent, for instance.
They weren't. Because see, I remember in the 80s, I think it was 86 when I first started, kind of joining the gangs. I remember it was just more of a hangout. It was a hangout, and then as when these movies started coming out. And let's just say one of your friends ended up getting beat up, jumped, or shot. Now you have a way of how to deal with that. How to go back and how to pay them back or get your revenge, because now because of the movies, now you were like, oh, okay, then we can do it like this. We can do it like this. So it went from a time of just fighting to and using bats and knives to now gun violence.
Just because of the movies.
I believe the movies had a great influence in that culture.
That's crazy.
Oh yeah, it was, and I remember thinking, if you were to ask anybody now who was around that time, they would tell you that the 90s, the early 90s, late 80s were one of the worst times for a gang life in LA. Because like I said, everybody wanted to be a part of it. Everybody wanted to reach that peak of gangsterness, I would say, where they want to be the type. I mean, in fact, when I was a kid, when I joined the gang, my ultimate goal was to go from, it's funny, from looking back now, I realize it was stupid, but that was our mentality, from going to juvenile hall, from juvenile hall to camp to YA, which is youth authority, from YA to county, from county, to prison, and ultimately, earn your stripes and be, maybe get a shot at being one of the main dudes.
That was your goal?
That was my goal.
At what age? 15, 14?
I started, I would say, 12, 13. So
wow, that's the goal.
Yeah, well, and you got to remember, not only is the movies influencing, but also your friends, the people that you hang around with. I mean, I remember being there at the baseball field and guys that were getting out of prison, and you would see all the props he was getting, all the attention he was getting. So you're like, oh man, like this guy's like a role model, So we wanted, and then they would hear the stories and how it left people in awe. So being a kid, you were inspired by that, because that was your culture. That was the people you surrounded yourself with. It's like if you're hanging around at a baseball field, as a little kid, you start off a T-ball, and the more you play, as you're progressing in your talent, you're being inspired by other players, and ultimately your goal is to be a Major League Baseball player. Mm-hmm. Well, same with gangs, but for us, it wasn't the baseball; it was that person, that mafioso guy that you want to be.
Those movies were about the blacks or about Latinos as well?
Well, I remember them. You know what? Actually, it was the movie Colors. Colors was the one that brought a lot of attention to the gang life, and Colors was actually a movie that showed both the black gangs and the Mexican gangs. you know, and it was crazy because there's a scene in the movie where the blacks shoot at the Mexicans and the Mexicans go back and they shoot at them. So in your mind, you're thinking, yeah, we're better than the blacks, you know, or, you know, stuff like that. So it's all the, you know, how can I say, indoctrination.
Programming.
You know? Oh, yeah, your mind is being programmed to think that way.
And in the 1980s, you weren't in that bad relationship with the blacks? Latinos versus blacks?
You
that
know
wasn't
what?
a thing?
It wasn't really as heavy as it was in the 90s up to the 2000, the 2000s, because I think that, again, I believe movies is what influenced that more and more and more, you know. So I think the movies played a big part as far as I'm concerned.